He left me nothing. Not a single dime on a $300 check. I remember the sting of it, hot and sharp in my throat. I was drowning in bills. My son needed new shoes, and the richest man in the city looked me in the eye and left me zero. I almost threw the receipt away, but then I saw it. A note, tucked so carefully beneath his plate. It was like he was hiding a secret, or a confession. My heart hammered against my ribs. What could he possibly have to say to me? It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation for his rudeness. The note began with a name that wasn't mine. My dearest Alara, it said, and as my eyes traveled down those trembling lines, I realized the $0 tip wasn't an insult. It was a message meant for someone who had been gone for 40 years. A message he had been waiting a lifetime to deliver. Through me. The silence in the diner after he left was always the deepest. But this was different. It had a weight to it. Presence. I looked around. Manny, the cook, was in the back clanging pans. The rain streaked the windows, turning the streetlights into smears of gold. And I was alone with this piece of paper that felt alive in my hand. I remember him coming in. It was pouring. One of those cold, relentless rains that seems to wash the color out of the world. The bell above the door jangled, a weak, tinny sound, and he stood there, filling the doorway. Arthur Lockwood. Even soaked, he carried an aura. A heavy wool coat, dark as slate, dripping onto my clean floor. His hair was white, perfectly combed, but his face was a map of canyons, carved by time and something else. Something heavier. He didn't look at the menu. He didn't need to. He'd been coming here to this very booth in the corner every third Thursday for as long as I'd worked here. 5 years. He always ordered the same thing. Black coffee, Cobb salad, dressing on the side, and a slice of apple pie, but only if it was warm. He'd eat precisely half of the salad, take 3 sips of coffee, and just stare at the pie. He never touched it. That night was different. He didn't just glance at me. He held my gaze. His eyes were the color of a winter sky, pale and distant, but for a second, they focused. Really focused. On me. Not Evelyn the waitress, but me. It was unsettling. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it, giving a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. He walked to his booth, his steps measured, the tap of his fine leather shoes on the linoleum the only sound. I brought him his coffee. Rough night out there, Mr. Lockwood. He didn't answer. He was looking out the window, but I don't think he was seeing the rain. He was seeing something else. Someone else. His fingers, long and elegant but dotted with age spots, traced the rim of his saucer. It always rains on this day, he said, his voice a dry rustle, like pages turning in an old book. It was the first time he'd ever volunteered a sentence to me. To understand why a 0 on a tip slip could feel like a punch, you have to understand my world. My universe was 4 blocks wide. The diner, Leo's school, our apartment, and the 24-hour pharmacy. Leo, my boy, he's everything. He has his father's smile, but thankfully, not his father's sense of responsibility. He'd run out on us when Leo was just a baby, left a note on the fridge that was shorter than a grocery list. So it was just us. The diner was my anchor. The night shift paid a little better, and Manny let me bring Leo in on weekends if I was desperate, let him sleep in the back booth with his headphones on. We were a hair's breadth from the edge always. The car making a funny sound would send me into a week-long panic. A school field trip fee was a military operation of budgeting. So, when Arthur Lockwood, a man whose net worth was literally discussed on the financial news channel Manny had on in the kitchen, left me nothing on a large check, it wasn't just an insult. Felt like a confirmation. A confirmation from the universe that we were invisible. That our struggle didn't matter. That night, after finding the note, I didn't go home. I sat in the empty diner in his booth. The vinyl was cold. I smoothed the expensive paper on the Formica table. My dearest Alara, it began, and I read. My dearest Alara, 40 years today, a lifetime, a blink. The doctors say the memories will fade. that the edges will soften. They are fools. I remember the smell of your perfume, Chanel No. 5, and the faint, clean scent of the turpentine you used in your studio. I remember the exact sound of your laugh, a light, cascading thing that made me believe in music. I remember the weight of your head on my shoulder as we watched the sunrise from that little beach on Cape Cod. The sand so cold, but we didn't care. I built an empire for you, Elara. I thought that's what I was supposed to do, to give you the world. I worked day and night, convinced our future was in ledgers and boardrooms. You asked me to slow down. You asked me to come to the studio. You said the light was perfect for a portrait. I said, next week. I always said, next week. The last time I saw you, you were wearing that blue dress. The one the color of a summer sky. You were hanging a new painting. You turned and smiled at me, and in your eyes, I saw a tiny, reflected version of myself. And I saw something else, a question. A soft, sad question I was too busy to answer. They told me it was quick, that you didn't suffer. A lie people tell to soften the unsoftenable. You were gone. The light went out of the world, and I was left with a fortune and a heart so hollow. It echoed. I built the Lockwood Foundation, the hospitals, the galleries in your name, but it's ash, Elara. It's all just ash without you to see it. For 40 years I have come to this diner. It was our place. Our first date was at a place just like this. We were poor and in love and shared a milkshake with 2 straws. I come here, I order your favorite pie, and I wait. I don't know what for a sign, for forgiveness, for the courage to join you. Tonight I saw a young waitress. She has your eyes, the same weary hope in them. And for the first time I know what to do. This is my sign. The money means nothing, but the chance to change a story. That is the only currency that matters now. Forgive me, my love. Always, Arthur. The silence after I finished reading was thicker than before. The rain had stopped. The note ended. I turned it over, numb. On the back, in the same shaky hand, was written, for the woman with my Elara's eyes. Check the lining of the coat. The lining of the coat. My mind raced. His coat. He'd hung it on the old brass coat rack by the door. I stood up so fast my knees cracked. The diner was empty. Manny had left, thinking I was closing up. I walked to the coat rack, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. There it was, that heavy, expensive wool coat, still damp from the rain. My hands were trembling. I reached for it, felt heavier than it should. I found the inner seam near the chest. It's all just ash without you to see it. For 40 years I have come to this diner. It was our place. Our first date was at a place just like this. We were poor and in love and shared a milkshake with 2 straws. I come here, I order your favorite pie, and I wait. I don't know what for a sign, for forgiveness, for the courage to join you. Tonight I saw a young waitress. She has your eyes, the same weary hope in them. And for the first time I know what to do. This is my sign. The money means nothing, but the chance to change a story. That is the only currency that matters now. Forgive me, my love. Always, Arthur. The silence after I finished reading was thicker than before. The rain had stopped. The note ended. I turned it over, numb. On the back, in the same shaky hand, was written, for the woman with my Elara's eyes. Check the lining of the coat. The lining of the coat. My mind raced. His coat. He'd hung it on the old brass coat rack by the door. I stood up so fast my knees cracked. The diner was empty. Manny had left, thinking I was closing up. I walked to the coat rack, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. There it was, that heavy, expensive wool coat, still damp from the rain. My hands were trembling. I reached for it, felt heavier than it should. I found the inner seam near the chest, and I was his messenger. His final connection to the woman he loved. The 0 tip wasn't a measure of my worth. It was a test to see if I would look beyond the surface, beyond the immediate transaction, to find the hidden truth. He needed someone who would see the note, someone who would care enough to be curious. He needed someone kind. The lawyer, Mrs. Allen, explained everything. Arthur Lockwood had been diagnosed with a terminal illness a year prior. He'd spent that year not in frantic business, but in quiet, meticulous personal atonement. The foundation would continue his philanthropic work. But this was personal. He had a team discreetly vet several people in places he and Alara had loved. The park attendant, the librarian at their old branch, the diner waitress. He wasn't looking for the most needy in a clinical sense. He was looking for a specific glimmer of spirit, a resilience paired with kindness. He came to see you 3 times before that final night, Mrs. Allen told me, her eyes gentle. He watched how you treated the late-night drunks with firm patience, how you saved a bit of pie for the homeless man who came by the back door, how you smiled at your son when he visited, even when you looked dead on your feet. He said you had Alara's light. It was the highest compliment he could give. The money changed everything, but not in the way you might think. It didn't change us. It removed the fear. It gave us a foundation. We bought a small, safe house near a good school. I went back to school myself for social work. And with Mrs. Allen's help, we used a large part of the money to establish a small, local foundation in both Alara and Arthur's names. Not a billion-dollar empire, but a light fund, as I call it. It pays for art supplies and music lessons for kids in neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. It helps single parents with emergency car repairs, so they don't lose their job. It's a hand up, not a handout. A legacy of noticing the struggle and quietly, personally, easing it. I come back to the diner sometimes. Manny sold it to a nice young couple, but they kept the old sign. I sit in that corner booth. I order a slice of apple pie, and I think of them, Arthur and Alara. 2 souls who taught me that the grandest gestures are often the quietest. That grief can be a kind of love that lasts a lifetime. And that sometimes, kindness is a chain, stretching back through decades, waiting for the right person to pick up the link and carry it forward. He left me a $0 tip. And in doing so, he gave me everything. Not the money, but the understanding. The understanding that we are all walking around with invisible, frayed threads of love and loss trailing behind us. And that the greatest act of human kindness is sometimes just to see those threads. And to be careful not to step on them. To be the one who notices the note under the plate. He left me a $0 tip. And in doing so, he gave me everything. Not the money, but the understanding. The understanding that we are all walking around with invisible, frayed threads of love and loss trailing behind us. And that the greatest act of human kindness is sometimes just to see those threads. And to be careful not to step on them. To be the one who notices the note under the plate. Sitting there, in the quiet hum of a place that held so much sorrow and so much grace, I felt the full circle of it all. Arthur's grief was a locked room for 40 years. His love for Alara was the key, but he was too lost to turn it. That night, in his final act, he didn't just unlock the door for himself. He handed me the key, not to his grief but to a different room. One filled with possibility, with security, with the chance to breathe. And I realized that the greatest honor I could do his memory wasn't just to use the gift wisely. It was to pass the key along. I took out a note card, the same kind he used. I'd bought a box of them years ago on a whim. Felt right. My pen hovered over the paper. What do you say? How do you capture the echo of a kindness so vast it stretches across decades? I didn't write a story. I didn't have to. Arthur's story was his own. Mine was still being written. Instead, I wrote a question. The only question that truly matters when you're at the end of your rope, or when you find something unexpected tucked under the rubble of a bad day. I finished writing. I folded the card carefully in half. I paid my bill, leaving a generous tip in cash on the table. A proper, visible tip, because that's the currency of this world, and it matters too. Then, with a glance to make sure no one was watching, I lifted the edge of my plate and slipped the note card underneath. Just like he did. I placed it with intention. With hope. I got up, nodded to the new owner, and walked out into the evening. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew what would happen. Because kindness isn't a single transaction. It's a current. Arthur had stepped into it, finally, after 40 years of standing frozen on the bank. He'd passed the current to me, and now it was my turn to pass it on. Her name was Maya. I knew that. She was a student at the community college, studying graphic design. She told me once she loved the artwork in the Alara Studio brochures I'd left by the register. She worked the night shift to pay for her software subscriptions. Her world was about 4 blocks wide, too. Just a different 4 blocks. I talked to the new owners, Sam and Chloe. Wonderful people. I'd set up a small, anonymous fund with them. A lost and found box, we called it. It wasn't for lost keys or scarves. It was for lost hope. A small reserve to cover a month's rent in a crisis, to fix a broken laptop for a student, to buy a plane ticket home for someone in a family emergency. No red tape, just a quiet hand up, funded by the Light Fund's community outreach wing. Sam and Chloe were the gatekeepers. They had a good sense of people. They knew Maya. They knew her dream and the broken tablet that was holding her back. I didn't give her $5 million. I gave her a nudge, a sign that someone saw her struggle and believed in her dream. That's all Arthur really gave me at its core. A sign. The money was just the vehicle. The real gift was the message. You are seen. Your struggle is valid. Your hope is not foolish. That's the currency that never runs out. The ripples spread. Maya finished her program with distinction. Her first freelance job was designing the website for the Alara Studio, pro bono. Leo got his degree in environmental science. He said Arthur's story made him want to fix broken systems, to leave the world better than he found it. The Light Fund didn't make headlines. It didn't need to. It mended car engines and replaced broken refrigerators. It bought band instruments and soccer cleats. It was a whisper of kindness in a loud, harsh world. And whispers, I've learned, can be heard for a very long time. I visited their graves often, Arthur's and Alara's. I tell them about Leo, about the studio, about Maya. I'd place 2 white roses and just sit in the quiet. I never felt like I was talking to the dead. I felt like I was updating family, because in a very real way they had become part of mine. One afternoon, Mrs. Allen called me. Evelyn, she said, her voice warm with a hint of mischief. I've been going through the final boxes from Arthur's estate. There's something I think you should see. He left very specific instructions that it be sent to you when the time felt right. I think the time is right. My heart did that familiar, funny little stutter it always did when something connected to Arthur appeared. I untied the ribbon. The box contained no legal documents, no more checks. It held a single small oil painting on a wooden panel. It was a portrait, but not of a person. Took my breath away. The detail was photographic, but the feeling was pure, aching emotion. You could feel the silence, the waiting, the profound absence. In the reflection on the chrome napkin dispenser, blurred and faint, was the suggestion of an empty booth. And on the rim of the pie plate, a single, perfectly painted fingerprint of blue. Alara's blue, the color of her dress. He painted it, Mrs. Allen said softly. In the last year, he told me he hadn't picked up a brush since she died. He said he was trying to paint the shape of his remorse, the emptiness of the next weeks that never came. I held the painting, this physical manifestation of a 40-year vigil, and I understood everything. The pie he never ate wasn't just a memorial. It was an offering he renewed every month, hoping against hope that somehow, somewhere, she might finally take a bite. The 0 tip. It was him leaving the exact value he placed on his own life without her. 0. And the fortune he left under the plate? That was the value he saw in the chance to prevent another story from ending in the same empty silence. I hung the painting in my living room. People ask about it. It's so melancholy, they say. Why do you keep it where you see it every day? I tell them it's not a painting of sadness. It's a painting of love. The most stubborn, enduring, flawed, and magnificent kind of love. A love that waited. A love that finally learned to speak. Not in words, but in a life-changing act of silent generosity. Arthur Lockwood taught me that regret has a weight, can sink you, or, if you're brave enough to face it, you can take that weight and use it to anchor something good for someone else. to build a pier in a stormy sea so another person doesn't drown. He also taught me about the invisible people, the waitresses, the cashiers, the security guards, the people we pass by every day. We are all walking libraries of unseen stories, of private battles and quiet dreams. Arthur saw me, not just the uniform, but the mother, the struggler, the hopeful heart beneath. And because he saw me, I learned to see others, truly see them. So, this is the story of a billionaire who left a $0 tip. But that's not the story at all. This is the story of a heartbroken man who spent 40 years painting a masterpiece of grief with his life, and whose final, desperate stroke was one of radiant, redeeming kindness. This is the story of a single mom who learned that the most valuable things are never left in plain sight. They are hidden under plates, in the linings of coats, in the quiet questions we're afraid to ask, and in the courage to answer them for someone else. The diner is still there. The pie is still warm. The corner booth still waits. And every night, somewhere, someone is leaving a small kindness hidden in plain sight, and someone else is discovering that their life is about to change because of it. The chain is unbroken. The current flows on. Look around you. Who in your life is waiting for a sign? Who is painting their own silent portrait of loneliness? You don't need a fortune. You just need to see them, really see them, and then, in your own way, lift the plate.